And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Singular Gold Executive, Kara Cunningham.
This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Stop me right now. I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I
So how do you take your business and take it from a hobby to a thriving, successful income? My name's Kara Cunningham. I'm one of your newest $1 million earners, and I'm a gold executive. 4.5, almost 5 years ago, I was in a completely different place. And through the course of my journey, I've observed a lot of people succeed in this business. I have a lot under me. I've seen a lot of people in cross lines, and I've also seen a lot of people fail. I've seen people stuck in the same place for years, and I've seen people come and then go because they couldn't get their business past that hobby income. And so I've really thought a lot lately, what does it take? What is that secret component that is going to change someone's business and make it a success? And I think I've got it figured out. I've narrowed it down to one thing. This one thing is what took me from a $450 investment to $1 million in 4.5 years. Just one thing. And you know what? This one thing can be inside of all of you, just like it was inside of me. So are you ready to find out what it is? I truly believe that the only secret to success in this business is one word. That word is initiative. I grew up with a very successful father, and this word was preached to me my entire life. He talked about how I needed to have initiative, how other successful people, he would point them out, had initiative. And you know what? The one thing about initiative is that it starts with the letter I, and that initiative is within you. It's within all of you. That's the great thing about this one secret to success in this business. So let's talk about initiative. When I started this business, I was set up to fail. I truly, truly was. There were so many barriers that I was facing that I could have made excuses about. One of those happened to be I didn't have time. Another was that I didn't have experience, and a third was that I didn't have the right personality. So let me break down those barriers for you. The first is I didn't have time, and I truly didn't. And I hear people tell me that all the time, that they don't have time for this business. Well, let me tell you what I was up against with this. I was a recent single mom. I actually had left my ex-husband 2 months before, and I was raising my 3 kids alone. And when I say raising my 3 little kids, they were little. I started the week of my daughter's first birthday. I also had a kindergartner, and I had a 3rd grader. And I was learning to juggle all of that on my own, along with being a full-time professor at a university. It was also the holiday season. I started right after Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving. And so it was also the first holiday that my kids were experiencing without their dad. And so keeping the holidays bright and energetic was really, really important. Plus, I was moving. I was moving from my marital home to another community, and I was afraid to pull my kids out of school. So I was getting up at 5:30 every morning, and I was getting the kids ready, and I was driving an hour to the next town so I wouldn't have to have them change schools in the middle of the school year. And then I was driving another 30 minutes to my full-time job. And then at the end of the day, having to drive to school to pick them up, et cetera, et cetera. And so I had a lot on my plate, right? And I was going through the divorce, meeting with attorneys, all of that. But you know what? I had initiative, and initiative was within me. One of the definitions of initiative is it's the ability to assess and initiate things independently. It means you have inner drive and inner motivation. It means you're ambitious. And heck yeah, I'm ambitious. I've always been ambitious. From the time that I was very, very small and on the rodeo trail, I was ambitious and it brought me success. From the time I got out of college, I became a college professor at 21. because I was ambitious and I had initiative. And so I had that within me. And I just applied this, to this business, even though I had all of these barriers and all of these obstacles in front of me that was really trying to set me up from succeeding in this. So this is what I did. I made time. How did I make time? First of all, I had to sacrifice things, right? We're all busy. I was super busy. It meant sacrificing. Just like if you're trying to diet or you're trying to get healthy, if you continue eating ice cream in the McDonald's every single day, are you gonna lose 50 pounds? You're not. You have to make the sacrifices of the Big Macs and the ice cream. And so that's what I did with this. And so let's talk about some of those sacrifices. I was willing to make them first. And that's one of the things I see that some people who are not successful in this business, that they don't do. One of the things I sacrificed is watching television. I know that doesn't seem very big, but if you think about the average American, they probably spend a couple hours each day watching television. I'm one of those all-in type of gals. If you know me, you know that. And so I went all in with getting rid of TV. It's almost 5 years later. I don't even know what the weather report is every day. I do not watch TV, not a single minute of it, every single day. But you know what? I don't miss it. And I'm getting so much more enrichment out of my life for sacrificing that. Another thing that I used to love to do, my biggest hobby beyond horses, was reading novels. I used to read several novels a month. It was my escape. My life wasn't great, and I could lose myself in the pages of those books. But when I started this business, I gave up novels. You know what? I haven't read a single novel in 5 years. I don't miss that either. In fact, I try to start one sometimes now. I can't get past chapter 2 because my mind is always thinking about what I need to do for my business instead of losing myself in the pages of a romance novel. Some other things I sacrificed would be time with friends. I can't even tell you how many times I've had one of my good friends ask me to go to a rock concert or country concert with her, or I have another friend that likes trail riding and camping, and how many times she's asked me to spend the weekend and go do that with her. You know what? I have said no so many times because I said I had to do a training, or I was gonna go do a meeting, or I had other things that I needed to do, so I sacrificed that time. But you know what? It's okay, because now I get to spend the time on the beaches of Bora Bora. So I think it was a pretty good trade-off. So one of the other things I did, other than make sacrifices, is I always made sure I had a list. I have a kind of primitive list. If you look up on the slide, you'll see how I make lists. Sometimes they're on my hand. It's not uncommon to see me with written stuff all over. Sometimes they're just on whatever that I have with me, but I always, always, always have a list. That way, if I have an extra 2 minutes in my day, I have something to do. I never have nothing to do because I always have a list, right? So if you are not a list maker, become a list maker. And it's really, really gratifying. You can see on one of those lists, well, you can't, I can see it, but y'all can't. On one of those lists, I have almost everything scratched out. It's pretty gratifying to see that. But then I go on to my next one. That doesn't mean I have nothing to do. It means I'm creating my next list. The next thing I did is I made sure I scheduled time. Just like if you have a regular business, or regular job, you have to go in at a certain time of the day, certain days of the week. I scheduled time. I fit this in. So where does a busy mom, single mom who's commuting and working full-time fit this in? Let me tell you where I scheduled it in. First, on my commutes. I scheduled in calls during my commute. My kids really, really, really know how to tell about Ignite kits and UTKs, by the way. I also scheduled time in during my lunch hour. So if I was between college classes, I would make sure that I had that list, and I was gonna spend that entire hour, not on class prep, on my business. I also blocked out time each week that I knew maybe my kids didn't have an activity or whatever, and then I devoted that to a transformation party or three-way calls or whatever it was. So I broke each week down and blocked off times, and then I went back to that list. And finally, I made time because I refuse to fail. I hate to fail. Anyone with me on that? Do you hate to fail? I hate it. But you know what I've learned throughout life? It's easy to fail if no one knows you're failing. And I had a lot of failure in my life through my 20s and 30s because I didn't tell people my goals. I didn't tell them what I was trying to strive for. And as a result, I failed on some of them, many of them, and no one knew. So I didn't look like a failure. And so on this, I told people right from the get-go to make myself accountable. It was scary. But the night before I started, I said, I'm scared, I'm skeptical, and I'm hopeful too, and I need change in my life, and I hope I found something that's gonna change me. If I'm gonna let everyone know, darn right, I'm gonna go for it, because it's hard to fail when people know you fail, right? I still don't have time. 5 years later, I'm still a single mom, and my kids are busier than ever. Rodeo family, it would have been so easy if all 3 of my kids would have picked that interest. But you know what? They didn't. My oldest has my passion. In the past year, with her alone, we traveled to 12 states and 3 national competitions on the rodeo trail. That's pretty tough to juggle for a single mom. And we train our own horses too. We don't buy them seasoned, and so that adds another element to that activity. Then I have my son, who decided he likes baseball, so he plays full year-round baseball, and I don't live in Kansas City. I live close to Kansas City, but I have to drive him into the metro several times a week for him to follow his dream. And then my little Libby, who is 10 months old, when I left my marriage in a year when I started this business, she's a dancer, and she's on a competitive team. She's the youngest one on a 9 and under nationally ranked team. It means she has dance classes 5 times a week at age 5 in Kansas City. I don't have time with all of that going on. But you know what? I make time. I still make sacrifices. I try to balance everything and do it all. When I'm done here today, I'm heading to a rodeo. I make sure I always have that list, and I make sure people know what my goals are, because those are the things that made me successful, and darn right, as my life gets busier, those are the things that I'm gonna continue to do. Another reason that I was set up to fail in this business is because I didn't have experience. I'd never done sales. I'd never done another MLM before. So I had nothing to draw upon for that. My upline is Casey Frost. And when I started this business, she was a gold manager. She was pretty new in her journey too. And so it's not like I joined an executive team, right? And I was a front level to an executive or gold executive. I was front line to someone who was just starting. And you know what? If you know me, if you follow me on Facebook, I am cheap. And I wouldn't even invest in a smartphone. Calla probably remembers this because when I met her, I think she thought I was crazy. My first year and a half in this business, I used a freaking flip phone, and I didn't text anyone because I didn't know how to text. But you know what it did? It got me on the phone, talking to people. And so actually, it might have been a benefit. Despite all of those barriers, I still had initiative. Another definition of initiative is a plan, a strategy, and action. And I am a strategic person. I am super analytical, and I always have a plan. I like to plan my life out. They might fail, my plans, but I use strategy on everything I do. And so that definition of initiative worked for me too. So I dug in anyways. I used daily action. I was consistent. Mark talks all the time about being consistent. I didn't even know Mark when I started, but I knew that you had to work at something every day to make it a success. I send my daughter to the arena and drop her off. She's 13 every day. And then I haul my other kids to Kansas City for dance and baseball, because I know, and she knows, if she wants to pick up rodeo winnings, she better darn sure be at that arena practice and invest in her butt every single day. And so that's what I did, daily action. I also didn't wait for instruction. I get sometimes people, they start the business and they want me to tell them exactly what to do every single day. Or they want the company, corporate, to tell them exactly what to do every single day. You know what? You don't have to wait for someone to tell you what to do. If you have initiative, even if you don't know what to do, you do something. It's the action that you put to work. I also tried to use my smarts, is what I like to call it. I had very, very, very limited time, like I mentioned. And so if there was an evening and there was a call that I could get on and learn about a product, or a training call, I chose that I was going to use my smarts and not do it. And there's probably some leaders out there cringing right now thinking, oh my gosh, we tell our people to always get on calls. But you know what? If I only had 2 or 3 hours in my day and part of it needed to be taken up to do a training call or an opportunity call or a product call, it was going to turn me more dimes quicker if I picked up the phone and called someone and got them to buy the product. That increased my knowledge. And I was a college professor, so I know the benefit of increasing your knowledge, but I didn't have time to wait. I instead learned by doing and made sure that the actions that I did every day could result in sold kits, would result in leaders being built and not just listening, by doing. I also observe to learn. I really, really, really like to see what elements get other people successful. And so right away, I was inspired by a couple leaders in our company, and they probably don't know this, but they're about ready to find out. Some things don't come naturally to me, which I'll talk about later. So I observed Dusty Ely and Lacey Friends because I saw how they built really, really good teams. I observed them on Facebook. I observed them at corporate events. And then they were executives. I started doing what they were doing to build teams strong like they did, right? I also observed my downline. I let go of my arrogance, and I learned from people under me. One of the best product coaches out there ever, people, is Robin Packard. I was an okay product coach. I helped coach her to her success. But you know what? I waited for people to come to me with product questions, and I saw how she created a customer support network and coached people before they asked. I learned from my downline, and I wasn't afraid to implement what I saw that worked. And I also tried new things. It didn't matter if anyone had ever tried it before, and if I knew if it was going to be a success or not. I wasn't afraid to take a risk. So let me give you an example. I couldn't get people my first couple years to come to corporate events like this because of cost or travel or whatever. And so instead I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring an event to them. And so I started doing 2.5-day team retreats. That's a picture from one of them. I've had as many as 200 plus people at my retreats on my team. It had never been done before, in my upline at least. But you know what? I wasn't afraid to try, and it got people plugged in, and now they come to corporate events. Another barrier that was up against me that I could have used as an excuse is my personality. I am aloof. That is an adjective that describes me. Kara is aloof. I can get up and I can talk to people up here, but for me to talk one-on-one with you, it's awkward. Some of you've done it, so you know what I'm talking about. I am a little misunderstood because of my aloofness and a mystery to people. And in fact, people will think, oh, she's snotty, or she's insecure, or she doesn't like me. But you know what? It's none of those. I'm just aloof. It's my personality. But how do you take an aloof person and get them to gold executive and $1 million earner status in a sales team building business? I was also disconnected. My son had cancer several years ago. And through the course of his treatment, I didn't want to bother anyone with our emotional and day-to-day struggles, so I disconnected myself from family and friends. I tried to put up a strong exterior and kind of pushed everyone away, right? Because that was easier for me, and it was the way for me to be strong. But when I started this business, my network was disconnected from me, plus I had been depressed for years. The picture that was on the slide that you might see in a minute, I don't know, who would have gone to that person, honestly, as looking, oh, I want to join her team, woohoo, I mean, right? Look at me. Because I was aloof, depressed, misunderstood, and disconnected, but I had initiative, right? And that's the power and the ability to take charge and change some things. So am I still aloof? Yeah, but let's talk about what I did. I rejected that excuse. I did it afraid. I was very afraid, and I knew that I had to break down those barriers to let my network in so they would know me more, so I wouldn't be as much of a mystery. And so I started telling and sharing my inner thoughts and my inner feelings with people, being very honest and very open, very raw. If you've seen some of my Facebook posts, you know what I mean. But it broke down those barriers for people, and it drew people in. It was darn scary after keeping all my secrets of a bad marriage and a sick kid and all of these things for all those years to do it. But it didn't matter because I knew it had to be done. I also focused on my strengths. I am very in touch with my strengths and weaknesses as an analytical mind, and I'm honest with myself about them. I knew that maybe I didn't have the bubbly, charismatic, friend to everyone personality that my upline Casey does, but I had some other things that I could offer, and I was gonna do that. And so I focused on my strengths. I'm a teacher, I can teach. So guess what? I started doing trainings right away. As a gold manager, I started doing half-day trainings. I wasn't scared that I didn't know how to get someone success because I knew how to teach and I could at least get them to gold manager. I also knew that I could do public speaking because, again, college professor, I speak in front of people a lot, or I used to. And so I did a lot of meetings. I built my business on meetings because I can stand up in front of people and talk, so might as well use that strength, right? And I also knew that I was a good writer and I understood social media. And so I took those writing skills and went to work there and focused on those strengths, and it started to build my business. But I also grew my skills and I focused on my weaknesses too. Cold marketing, talking to strangers, and team building and being in groups, scary for me. Let me tell you, I am actually a sorority rush girl dropout. I got offers to houses. I thought it was the thing to do to go through sorority rush in college at K-State. It freaked this aloof girl out, and I dropped out of rush because being around groups all the time and team building, ugh. But anyways, you know, I knew I had to focus on that. And so that's why I started focusing on Dusty and Lacey, because I saw that they were great team builders. And you know what? I consider myself a team builder now too. Those retreats are perfect examples, dinners that we've done, getting to know people. Another skill that I grew was cold marketing and talking to those strangers. And I want to give you an example on that one. Just recently, I actually have someone that I'm rooming with that before this weekend, I had only met for 20 minutes at the Kansas City Zoo this summer. I sat down and met someone on her invitation, by the way, at the zoo. She was from Illinois. Her name is Erica, and she's out here somewhere. I can't see her because of the lights. But anyways, we got to talking, friended her on Facebook. 3 weeks later, she bought an Ignite kit. 2 weeks later, she was a manager, and guess what? She's here now. That was cold marketing. Kara met someone, a stranger, and is now rooming with not just that stranger, but a second stranger this week, Kim Paris from Texas, who joined my team recently too. And through that, I gained confidence. And so I didn't use it as an excuse. Initiative doesn't just define me. Initiative defines all of these gals on this slide. I am so incredibly blessed by an amazing team. I have 9 executives or above in my first 4 levels. 9, that is crazy. And you know what? Some of them had barriers too, and some of them could have had excuses, but they had initiative. So it didn't matter, and that's why they're a success. I'm gonna just talk about a couple of them real quick. One, Crystal Nichols, gold executive. She's passed me. I'm not a $100,000 bonus earner, but you've seen Crystal. She is. I will tell you, Crystal also was set up to fail. She became a mom very young, didn't go to college, and had always been a stay-at-home mom and hadn't worked outside of the home. Also, didn't really have a weight loss story. Have you seen Crystal? She looks like a freaking runway model. She's gorgeous and always has been, right? But she had initiative. So it didn't matter that she'd never worked outside the home before. It didn't matter that she didn't have a weight loss story. Crystal used initiative. Another one on there's Amy Potter. Amy Potter signed up with someone who was brand new at their first transformation party. And you know what? Her sponsor, she didn't know very well. In fact, they'd only met each other a couple times. And then when Amy decided to attack this business, she had her sponsor who was pretty inactive in the business, right? And she also had 2 people above her, Robin and I, who we were strangers to her too. So I've heard people say, but I didn't join an executive team or my sponsors knew, so how am I supposed to know how to grow a business? You know what Amy did? She had initiative. Another one up there is Julie Carell. When Julie started, she had such passion for this business and making it into a successful business. But Julie lived in Western Nebraska. I couldn't quite balance trips to Western Nebraska even though she asked me. She'd never been to a transformation event. She had no one close in her area to call on. You know what? It didn't matter. Julie took our products to Nebraska, and Nebraska is strong with singular. And the final one I'm going to talk about up there, because a lot of people tell me they don't have the right network. Look at Kaylin Caldwell. When she started, she was 22 years old. Most 22-year-olds are surrounded by people who could really care less about their health and their wealth, right? They have other priorities, and their initiative is directed other places. But Kaylin didn't let it stand in her way that she didn't have the right network, because guess what? Kaylin has initiative too. So let me ask you this. Does initiative define you? Because it is within all of us. If it hasn't defined you yet, good gravy, go get it. It starts with I. It doesn't start with your sponsor or your network. It doesn't start with any of those things. It starts with you. So the song I came out to was Fight Song. And in it, it has a lyric that really, really speaks to me. It says, you only have one match, but you can make an explosion. You know what? You are the freaking match. Strike it, and you will see your business explode.
This is my fight song. Take back my life.